You say we're friends and then we make out again. Wake up in my bed. All the right questions come off so sensitive. Then we get undressed. I know all the tricks up your sleeve. Know all your moves in the sheets. Ain't nothing I haven't seen. You ain't in for talking, you ain't in for loving. I know anybody's hands would do. You ain't here to listen, you don't want that real shit. But it's cool 'cause I'm a fuckboy too. A fuckboy too. Just like you. A fuckboy too. You got somebody in case I'm not around. I got a couple, yeah, I got a couple. Our conversations always, hey, are you down? It ain't so subtle, don't really care though. I know all the tricks up your sleeve. Know all your moves in the sheets. Ain't nothing I haven't seen. You ain't in for talking, you ain't in for loving. I know anybody's hands would do. You ain't here to listen, you don't want that real shit. But it's cool 'cause I'm a fuckboy too. A fuckboy too. Just like you. A fuckboy too. It takes one to know one and
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag live stream. I'm your host, Red Kachik, and I got two special guests this evening for the Outlaw Tour golf tournament this week. Hopefully, the audio is good. We always get a little bit of a hang-up with three voices going on, so if you do hear something, just drop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to fix it. But hopefully, pre-show, we got the Skype situation worked out, so it should be okay. I'll bring in our first guest. You're very familiar with him. That's Mr. Skyler of the Golf Gurus. Skyler, I know this is like you've been telling me this is a major for you all week. How's everything going for you, dude?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said on the podcast, it's tough to figure out which day of the week it is, but when we know we have Outlaw Golf back, we're dialed in. So excited to do this tonight with Noto and get everybody back. I brought back the feels watching that intro video. So excited for the next few days ahead.
Absolutely. So we'll dive into it. The next guest we have, Notorious, getting him out of his Utah cave for probably seemingly a major for him too, with the Scottsdale Open. Derek, how's the coronavirus and lockdown, quarantine been treating you and your family, man?
Yeah, it's been all right. I mean, work from home anyway, so nothing too crazy for me other than being full-time dad now. So that's been a little interesting. But other than that, it's good. Excited to grind some golf. I've never been to so many mini tour websites and Googled so many names, and just doing my best to do my research. But I'm excited. I do wish we had full week contests, but hopefully we get those soon.
You think the Outlaw Tour would have coordinated like getting these guys headshots to send to DK before the week starts? Like, come on, guys. That's all you got to do. Let's get some headshots on this for DraftKings. But yeah, it's been fun. I know Sky's been working on a sheet, and the last couple weeks really getting a ton of data from different mini tours. He's done like Monday. Tell me about it, Sky. I'm not going to talk about your work. You've been doing Monday qualifier stuff, Corn Ferry Tour, Hooters Tour. What have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean, to Derek's point, I mean, there's so much different golf action going around across, the nation that these guys play on everything that I've been able to find. So from looking into what we started with, just the Outlaw and the Golden State, those two in the Southwest region there, crossing over into some of the other major tours. We have some winners from the Dakotas Tour, the Swing Thought, the All Pro Tour, and some miscellaneous ones, down across the nation. And then also, like you said, the Monday qualifiers, these guys are littered throughout them in the PGA Tour as well as the Korn Ferry. So as much as I could find, I'm trying to at least put a crystal ball on these guys, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I think at least if we can have some background, it only helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into it, I'm curious to pick your brain, Noto, and I'm sure the listeners are interested. How do you treat these just showdown? Are you hitting showdown and late round? How are you been addressing this without having like full week to unload your bankroll? You've been having to hit showdown. I assume you're hitting late round. Are you adjusting your player pool for the different slates, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, not to sound like a complete DJ, but I do 50 lineups for the first main round, and then hit the late round, do my main lineup, pretty much play anything that I can get my hands on. And some of these late round contests are terrible. It's been like 18 golfers, and you have to take like 3 amateurs, but still grinding anyway.
Absolutely. So I figured the best way to start it from the top, and we're not going to go through every single player, but I did want to hit the different tiers. We'll try to keep this a very down to the point live stream for you guys on the eve of the tournament. But obviously, if you listen to the podcast this week with Skylar and Axis, was a great show. They talked through a lot of the PGA Tour name brand guys. And some that are where they're priced maybe seem like a trap for the general guys, just playing DFS golf for the first time, or maybe just wanting to play something for DFS. So we'll start off at the top, in the 10K range with Damon Streelman, somewhat familiar names, and you got Picanzo there at 10K. So I'll lead off with Noto. Any thoughts in this 10K range? I know generally with these fields, balance is probably the way to go. It's really tough to find adequate value, I would say. But any takes on these guys? Obviously, Damon shooting 58 Friday, I'm sure, puts up a lot of flags, good flags.
Yeah, I mean, from a lineup building perspective, I think this week's a little bit different than the ones we've had the last few, just because the field's a lot deeper. Naturally, that creates more value. There's a lot of great plays in the 7K range, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So I do think you can start your lineups with somebody up here. I've generally done more of a balanced build with these Outlaw Tour events, but I mean, Damon's going to be popular. Probably the highest guy above 10K, probably one of the highest in the field. Everyone saw the 58. He's a former winner of this event. He's the highest ranked golfer in the world, or in the field.
I mean, in this world right now, kind of.
If putting wasn't involved, he'd be top 10 maybe. But so I mean, I think no matter what you were looking at, you're probably going to land on a lot of Damon. Streelman, don't really know where his form's at, and I hear he might be walking instead of taking a cart. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know why you wouldn't take a cart with how hot it's going to be out there. But he does live in Scottsdale, and he's obviously a multi-time winner on tour. Jake, I think, is probably going to be the lowest owned of the bunch, even though he won on the Outlaw Tour, won on the Parker Open. And then Picanzo, just, what a G. This guy's awesome. Just grinds these mini tours. I'm rooting for him, and I think he deserves to be priced up here. I don't know what his ownership's going to be like. I don't know if this event's going to bring in more casual DFS players than the last few weeks, but if you've been paying attention, then you probably know Picanzo by now.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and pull up this sheet, and I'll hand it over to Skylar for this, but I'll go ahead and pull up the sheets guide so we can kind of get an idea for what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I think Noto's right on what we're probably going to see with Damon pulling in a lot of ownership, and then Streelman and Czechia falling quite a bit short. And I think Picanzo will probably get the second most ownership of guys 10K plus. So I'm trying not to overthink things and get cute, but we've seen the PGA Tour guys be rusty in their first time back. And actually, you mentioned the Streelman walking situation. Alan Shipnuck is there on site and spoke to Damon and Streelman this afternoon. Damon acted like he hadn't been playing that much. The 58 kind of came out of nowhere and wasn't sure that he should be the favorite as much as he is, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I actually think the play on my end, if I'm going to go a little bit more contrarian, is to skip Damon and then sprinkle in Streelman and Checa and be heavy on Picanso for me. So let the masses go to the most popular guy for me personally, and mix in those who Checa has been, hot fire obviously in the 3 events he's played recently, and then, Picanso's just the mini tour go.
Yeah, it's really strange on the odds, seeing Streelman there at 20-1 being priced.
And that was opening. He opened there.
Okay.
He's now down closer to 12. But yeah, he opened 20. People jumped in on him. I mean, we'll walk right into the 9Ks. But the other person whose odds were completely slashed was Nate Lashley.
Well, I mean, what's interesting too, because again, we're talking showdown. When we look at these, like 4.5 to 1 to win is great. But when you take a peek at the first round leader, he's 8-1. Streelman's at 16-1, 18-1 for Checa. So it's not as deflated in terms of him being such a hot favorite. So keep that in mind too, because again, you're looking at showdown, not 3 rounds or 4 rounds of a tournament. So it's probably prudent to kind of avoid that chalky situation for a guy that most people will see. Wow, 4.5 to 1. You have to plug him in when the next best is 12-1. So yeah, if you want to go down to the 9K, let's keep it rolling.
I think we got to start with DK fixing the algorithm, to the max. I mean, I don't even understand. Carson Robertson has been the most mispriced player on any slate of all time for the last month. Anybody's been playing Outlaw, and now he's 80-1 and he's 9,500. He might not be owned, by anyone due to that, jump up. So I mean, you rule him out, and I think the talk of before even going into the guys, I'm interested to see, Noto, what you think of Lashley, because to me, he's probably, if not the most owned, probably like the second most owned player on the slate, in my opinion, just because of that price and the name recognition. He's obviously won a PGA Tour event. So I have no idea. I haven't seen any interviews or anything on him. He has a little bit of history, like 4 years ago here. But I think I tend to lean similar to how I say Damon, where I'll let the popularity go to Lashley and pivot to other guys that we may like in the 9Ks. What are your thoughts right away on him?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm probably going to end up playing a lot of him. He just feels too underpriced, especially with his odds just getting slashed. He's down to like 13, 14-1 in most books.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're getting a regular PGA Tour player. I think he won on the PGA Tour last year, at least competed. He was in contention a number of times. So I don't know. He does have a second place here as well. It was 4 years ago. So I'll probably eat the last 2 chalk and then look to differentiate elsewhere. I've always been a guy that if I like the play, I don't mind if he's chalky. If I'm iffy on him, then I'll fade him at high ownership. So I'll probably be on Lashley.
Okay. And I think, if we look in the range, you look at the top 2, Dillon Wu, Callum Hill. I think Wu's been trending well. We saw Hill win the event and then miss a cut, which is probably the only missed cut on any of the guys around here. But I kind of like Harkins a little bit, man. I used to love playing Harkins when he was, 6,600, 3 years ago on DraftKings. I think he's interesting.
I mean, he's okay. I wish we had Ian Happ in the field, though.
Seriously.
No, yeah, I like Harkins as well. I think both of those guys are strong right there. And this will definitely be the week where Robert trolls everybody. I'm not going to add any. He's going to come out and shoot the low round on Tuesday. But Wu and Hill, I think they're both strong options. I think everyone's kind of going to see that miscut for Hill at the Outlaw Tour event and kind of be underweight on him. So I think he's a guy to get overweight on. Obviously, I love the Paul, Jeremy. Yannick's okay too, but Jeremy's just a monster. Top 10 pretty much every time out. Rarely has a bad round. And I just think he's not quite the name of some of the guys around him, so I wonder what his ownership is going to look like.
Did you say it was him that you said it was the Paul Casey of it, right? That was like the perfect comp.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, never wins, always there.
Mm-hmm. And then KK, at 9K, I think, realistically, those guys are right in the ballpark of, in my opinion, of the upper 9Ks too. So I think Jeremy, Paul, KK Limassol, and then you get right into Anguiano at 8.9. And I think all those dudes are strong in play. This field is way deeper than what we've seen, obviously, over the last, 6 weeks.
Yep, absolutely. Drew, who's your favorite player in the 9Ks?
The 9Ks, I'm going to go back to KK, to be honest. I don't mind Jeremy Paul either. And the pivot probably away from Lashley. But yeah, I think KK is fine. Like some of these guys on the mini tours, They thrive on the mini tours. Like, honestly, there's a talent gap to a degree with these guys on the PGA Tour. But when you see a guy like KK has been playing unreal outside of last week, I'm fine going back to him. I bet he's a lot lower owned in that group with Lashley, Harkins, especially if people pay up to the 10K range. I don't think they're going to play anybody in the 9K because they're going to feel like they're spinning down so far in the 6K. It's really ugly. So KK is probably my favorite guy to go to.
And we have a 162-man field, too, which is more than double what we've seen, the last month. So I do think ownership might get spread out a little bit more for it.
It should, yeah. I think people it's been a lot of League of Legends lately, but I started looking at how many people actually max enter contests, and you'd be surprised how few people max enter. And when you start thinking about those people that can't max enter, they always go to the safer side of plays. So they pay up for a 10K guy and immediately have to go under the 9K. So you can kind of get a feel for some of the ownership in this type of field, in my opinion anyways, that guys will try to go to name brand value. They see Damon's odds at 4.5 to 1. That, to me, speaks to Chalk City, potentially. I just feel like in a normal week, if you saw, we'll take DJ at 4.5 to 1, at the RBC Heritage, you're going to play DJ at 4.5 to 1. So I feel like it's a little bit different in Showdown, especially in this type of environment for mini tours. But that's just my take. We can hop down into the 8K range. I like a lot of guys down here too. I mean, like Jimmy Gunn, I've been playing, and he hasn't paid off enough in the different Showdown slates I've played him. JJ Spawn I'll probably avoid, and then we get a little bit of a price bump to Sam Triplett, which is interesting. I think Mason as well, but certainly Triplett's been in play the last couple weeks. Either one of y'all can take it in the 8K range. Yeah,
go ahead, Skyler.
All right. I mean, for me, Triplett, he's 125 to 1 relative to everybody else in the 8Ks. He had a strong round 2 a few weeks ago, but he's the by far worst odds in the range here. Kevin Lucas was the one who also jumped out from the initial opening odds. He was 66, immediately bet down to close to low 30s, maybe even 31 now. But if I had to say my number one, I would say it's Taylor Montgomery. He was a strong mini tour player in 2019. I think since the start of 2019, tracking his numbers when I went back, of the guys who have some decent samples, he's the third best when we got to strokes gained field differential on all of these mini tours. He won back-to-back stages in Q School, first and second for Korn Ferry, and then he's now on the Korn Ferry Tour as a regular. In his last event, he finished third down here in Florida in the Korn Ferry. So I think Taylor Montgomery would be my number one here. And then Brent, I guess Anguiano's right there too. Anguiano's viewed in my light kind of like Picanso. He's the second in the strokes gained field differential. So it'd be Anguiano, Taylor Montgomery, 1-2 for me in the 8Ks.
Yeah, right there with you. Anguiano just continues to crush every single week. I don't have as many tours as you do on your sheet there, but from the Dakotas Tour, the Golden State Tour, and the Outlaw Tour, he gains over 4 strokes per round when he tees it up, which is pretty incredible. And then Brent Grant, 3 top 25s on the Korn Ferry Tour in 2020, and 14 rounds on the mini tours that I've tracked. He's gained over 4 strokes per round, similar to Anguiano, so I like him as well. And then Taylor Montgomery, I'm right there with you. In his 5 Korn Ferry Tour starts, like you mentioned, he had the third, and then he also had 2 other top 25s, had a win on the All-Pro Tour in Arizona last year, and he's gained 26 strokes on the field in 6 rounds at this event, 7th and 3rd here last 2 years. So he kind of checks all the boxes. If you like course history, he's going to be on your short list for sure.
What's your take on Wheeldon, a 10K friendly guy for the last couple weeks and gets priced down to 8K? Odds don't really reflect the value per se, but for playing 9.8K, I think last week in 2 slates, he seems like he's probably in play as far as Showdown goes.
Yeah, I think he's a really safe option. He's got some course history as well. Outlaw Tour money leader, 7 top 10s in his last 9 events over there. So I think he's fine. I do like Yates a little bit more. But in terms of other 8K guys, not sure what to do with Spawn. Was it you, Skyler, that talked to his caddy that said he beat him in a practice round?
No, it was Eric Patterson.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once I heard that...
He wasn't wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. once I heard that, I was off of him for that event. So I don't know what to do with him. Nick Mason's a guy I like, tons of birdies, and it sounds like he's a very good putter, or at least it looks like it from the video highlights we've been seeing. And that's about it for me. I think Yannick Paul will probably be very overlooked after he kind of was a chalk to busted last week.
Yeah, this is the big separation we've seen between Jeremy and Yannick for the first time. 1,100 separating them. But I like Nick Mason too. I think I'm staying off Spawn. Once again, it just seems the first bets people made were Spawn and Lashley. I would assume two of the first people that they'll probably roster are the same. So that's my thoughts there. So I think we have plenty of data on these other guys surrounding in the 8Ks where you can live right around here.
Yeah, I'll stay off of Spawn. I don't feel bad about that at all. Going down into the mid 7K range, I know you were talking through your boy, was it Quest, Quest, and then Flavin. Those two there, those really your primary targets, kind of in the mid K. Is that kind of where you're, or mid 7K? Is that where you're kind of saving some salary?
Yeah, I think there's three that jump out to me. Quest that we talked about. So I think it's Quest. Again, the depths of the internet we've gotten to. So he is an absolute baller out of BYU. Never gone pro before. He just had to turn pro because of the season ending. He had 5 wins his senior fall, so September to whenever they stopped the season. And then he won 5 events his junior year too. Top 10 Jeff Sagarin ratings. He had 11 eagles in 24 rounds of this senior year. Led the nation in birdie or better rate. Again, this is against Division I college players. So I think this price range, he's got upside from what it seems. Anybody that wins 5 events has to be pretty dang good. I know it's D1, but I know it's a rival for you, Nodos. But I think you're interested in him too, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say a baller from BYU is a little bit of an oxymoron, but that's just me being bitter. Yeah, I do like him. I think I'll probably wait till after the first round before targeting him in single entry and 3 max, just because I think this is his first professional tour event. So I think he's great MME play. I think I have around 20% in my builds, but for single entry I'll probably wait. But yeah, I love the play, and I think you mentioned he bombs it off the tee, right? That can't hurt here.
Yeah, they said he averages 340 off the tee in some article. So and that makes sense with all his eagle rate. So there's only two par 5s this week, so we probably won't see that number. What also means if you have one, it's probably even more valuable.
Yeah, so I like him. I like Colton Yates. Pulled the full Keegan last week, which was great for me. I played him in round 1, faded him in round 2.
Nice.
Pure luck, more than anything. But 5th here last year, and we've seen him just rack up a ton of birdies, so I like going back to him. I think Calkins will probably be maybe the highest owned golfer in the field this week. He won here last year, 45 rounds on the mini tours that I've tracked, gains over 3.5 strokes per round, really high birdie rate, so I like him quite a bit. We've seen Andrew Young quite a bit on the Outlaw Tour. I think he's very safe, pretty good birdie or better percentage. Played on the PGA Tour quite a bit in 2018. Kind of didn't do much while he was there, but I think he's at least talented. Then you mentioned Patrick Flavin. I want to hear your thoughts on him.
Yeah, so Flavin, kid out of Miami of Ohio, I guess he's just a stud. I had a couple buddies who actually went to college with him. I was talking to him today. So he's been in Scottsdale apparently all of quarantine, just playing quite a bit. He had a 1st, 2nd, and a 3rd last summer on the Latino America Tour. Monday qualified this year into the Waste Management Open, which is probably, one of the top 2 most difficult Monday qualifiers out there. And I guess he just missed the cut. He dumped it on 15, or else he would have made the cut. He's played a little Corn Ferry, I think he qualified in. So I think 7,500, 50 to 1, most books out there. I think that's a really strong, probably my second favorite one in the 7Ks. I think my favorite though, I haven't heard anybody on him yet. We talked about him on the podcast a little bit. He was a late add to the field, but Kyle Pritchard. He's 7,800. Since the start of 2019, he's gained over 3.5 strokes per round on the field. He has, So 28 rounds, 3.5, 50% top five rate in 12 events. So 6 top fives in 12 events, 2 wins. And then he has another win in 2020 as well. And that win is on, let's see here, that win was on the All Pro Tour in January. So he's been really strong. So I think Pritchard is my one, followed close with Quest and Flavin there in the high 7Ks. And then Calkins, I think, is pretty decent chalk.
Yeah.
Got a quick question in the chat from Lou. He asked if you guys could quickly touch on building balance versus stars and scrubs with so many cheap guys. Like, personally, to me, the cheap guys are pretty ugly. I think in MME you could probably find a couple to mix and match at a very low exposure. But do you have any takes on some of these guys? I mean, we talk about top heavy fields. It drops off a cliff pretty quick when you hit 7K, I think. Any thoughts there overall? I know you kind of touched on Noto, but any further thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I mean, MME is always a mix of both. They'll all have stars and scrubs and I'll have balanced lineups. For my main lineup, I'm actually debating 2 different lineups. One has Damon at the top with 4 7K guys and T-Mont, and then the other one just has a couple 9K guys and some 7K guys. So I'm not sure which way I'm going to lean just yet, but the Lashley's just a little better. Huh?
How do you get to this decision? We all want to know this. Like, man, I would end up entering like double the entry fees just to make sure one of them does okay. Because, man, that's tough to live with when you pick the wrong one.
Oh yeah, it's always fun sweating the guys you don't pick. You sweat them more than the ones you do pick.
100%.
Always. It always turns out that way too.
And I don't make my decision till like right before lock, just going back and forth constantly. I don't really have a good process for it. Just hope you end up on the right side.
I like it.
If I'm focusing single entry, at least tomorrow, I'm going to lean Picanso as my highest owned guy for me. So if you consider that balance, I probably won't dip below Flavin. So yeah, high 7s, and then Picanso, and I really like Anguiano. Those are my 1-2 of the week. So like that's kind of how I lean. But to the point of the field depth, I mean, we haven't seen. I mean, even though these guys are 200 to 600 to 1 in the 6Ks, we've been able to find a few different flyers and a couple of guys, out there that make it a different approach than playing an amateur that's 6,400. It's just a different week.
Well, it's such a big difference when you go hand build, one lineup in this kind of field. You almost naturally go balanced. Even if you start with Damon, you get down to the 6K range. You say, well, maybe if I just save $2,000 off Damon, now I'm back up to the high 7s or something, or the low 8s. I feel pretty good about my lineup. But certainly in MME, throwing some 6K guys in your pool, mix and match a little bit, and have some exposure. If one of them shoots 5 under. And your top spin guys play well, you're in good shape. Otherwise, everyone's going to go balanced, and wouldn't say you're in the chalk range, but certainly you're going to build a lot of higher owned guys probably.
The chat brought up when we talked to Quest here, arguably the most horrific scene we've seen in PGA DFS. I'm not over it yet, Noto. I remember the night before talking to you up. I was like, "There's Noah Hoffman. He's the guy. I'm going everywhere with him." You're like, maybe I'll wait. And then, of course, the dude doesn't show up. I'm traumatized. I'm like worried about Locke of that happening again.
Yeah, I would have been pissed at you if I would have ended up having him on my main team.
It's sickening, man.
That was the worst. It was dead. It was dead 5 because he had like a 6:45 tee time.
And then we see him dressed on Twitter, like, "Hey, let's go!" And everyone's getting excited. Oh, let's get him out there on the course. He can still play.
He was probably headed out to the tournament to watch a buddy, and we needed him to play. Tee it up, man. I had him like 60% in all my tournament lineups. Like, come on, dude.
I mean, realistically, what sucks is if they could have handled it a little bit better, it probably swings tens of thousands of dollars on DraftKings if they just say, "Hey, no, we'll get you a 2:00 tee time," because then you don't upset anybody, But it was just a traumatic experience to go through.
I think the last time I had that, actually, I played with a couple guys at Stream Song on Saturday, and the last time I played Stream Song was at the PGA, and a notorious Oosthuizen withdrawal occurred in my Millie Maker lineups, and I decided to max it. And I think I had him in like 40%, and I was so pissed. But how do you enjoy golf? Like, it's 7:30 in the morning, and the guy's already withdrawn.
You can't. I was dead that day. I was like, okay, here we go, round two.
He must have woken up and, like, texted the guy, like, I can't play. Like, give it a chance. Oh, man. All right, let's hop down towards the low sevens, and if you have any notable guys to touch on into the in the 6K range. So I know you mentioned a couple on the podcast, Sky, so if you want to bring those up, if you had any others that I know Axis was alluding to a couple he likes. Don't want to give away all his plays, but if you have anybody down here, go for it.
I'm interested, before I even go through people, do you have, and it's only because just before I got on, I didn't even think about them all week, but before I got on this, I listened to kind of those interviews, and two people Damon said were like top 5, top 10 locks were Harkins, who we spoke on earlier and liked, but then he said Colt Knost has been out playing a popular Phoenix course like every day during this. I know he does the podcast with Sleaze. I don't know if they did any talk this week on it at all, but I didn't even think about him just because I don't view him in the PGA sense, but 7,400 for somebody who had a long career, I don't know if I should add him into my player pool. Do you have interest in him?
What's this course length at, you know? Is it like
71, I think? Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't played well, but he's not very long. He's admittedly short. That'd be my only thing.
But I mean, $7,400. I don't know. I mean, maybe it
makes sense.
But I also said you would avoid Lashley and Spawn. But I don't know if Knost is the same popularity as those other guys. Are you mixing him at all, Noto?
I took him out of my player pool just thinking he's going to be popular because of the name, but I don't have a strong take on him either way. I didn't know he's been playing a lot. I wish Drew Stoltz was in this field. That'd be a blast.
Amen.
I don't think playing a lot means too much, to be honest. But I mean,
no.
Michael Jordan
I have no idea. If he plays well round one, then I'll fire him up next.
A little different. Plus, the pricing comes out as soon as it locks, right? Or like a little bit middle of the round, so you'll get them cheap.
I think that even brings up a point that I'd like to discuss too with you guys, and just see like round 1 to round 3 strategy. Like, we're all going in blind with our research for round 1. It seems the masses overreact a little bit to round 2, but by round 3, the guys continue the momentum more often than, it seems, and the ownership, runs with the guys at the top of the leaderboard. Are you sticking with the same lineup you're running tomorrow, Drew, for round 2? What do you normally do?
I stick to similar builds, yeah. Like it's a very good point. Guys that play well in the first round, depending on who they are, like if it's some guy that, who was it, Gerska had an albatross or something in round 1 last week, like some of those are a little bit fluky, but in general, guys like, and I'll just use KK as a really easy example, guys that get near the lead in some of these tournaments playing well, they're usually outplaying the field, day after day for the rest of the tournament. So yeah, I don't have a problem playing guys after a good round. Now 62 with an albatross, 63, I don't really chase that, but it's certainly, I think when you get towards, a round 2 and round 3 in a 3-day event, I lean more towards guys that have more to lose. I think they have a little bit more fight in them. And they usually, these tournaments, man, they go low. So, like, if you get off to a slow start, you have to make it up. There's no, like, I'm in last. I just, I'm basically making $100 back off this week. It sucks. So, yeah, I have no issue going back to guys playing well. I wouldn't say I target them, but I certainly look to them first, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar, although, ownership sways so much that if it's a guy that wasn't on my radar before the tournament started and he comes out and fires a low round, I'm not going to, go to him just because I think he's going to be over-owned in the next round. So for the most part, I do bake in like the current odds after each round a little bit into my projections, and I just kind of let that do the work for me. So I don't chase it as much as probably most do, and I do look at those, kind of weird scoring from the rounds. Somebody doubles a par 5 or, the albatross you were talking about, then I weigh those the opposite way you would think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, like I bring up the example like Trevor Lamson last week, for those that follow closely. So he was the amateur who was, I think, top 5 or maybe top 10 after the first round. He was like 1% owned at 6,700 day 1. Day 2, he had a decent round leading up to. Day 2, he went like -7. He was still 4% owned, 7,100. And then day 3, when we had a 40-man field, 38-man field, he was 50% owned. So you can see, day 2, you still have some time to get on the same low-owned guys. But if they're top 10, round 3, I mean, the ownership, and we don't have placement points. So
yeah, and I think even without the placement points, though, I still consider those things. Like the example of KK 2 weeks ago when he won. You look at him and the people he's playing against in the final group or the final 2 groups. What are the odds that he loses that? Like, he's playing so well. He's been playing really well leading into that. Even without placement points, I want to have exposure. Do I lock him in or whatever? No, but I don't fade people in the lead. I don't do any of that stuff. In general,
but
I look to them first.
But the week before that, Kyle Slattery just fell apart in the final round. He was like 60% on. So I think it just depends on the player. If he's a good player, then yeah. Mm-hmm. So like Lampson last week, I wanted to fade him so bad. I ended up playing him. I think he was mediocre. But I certainly like the fade in tournaments last week.
Mm-hmm. If we get back to the low 7s, I think the most popular one and one I'm fine going in on is Blake Cannon. He was strong last week. I mean, if you look at the sheet, I believe he had another top 5. So Blake Cannon, let's see. Yeah, so he was 5th last week. And then he had a 2nd early on in January as well. He's the lowest of odds when they opened, kind of in this low 7Ks. I guess Ben Geyer is kind of close too. But Blake Cannon was really strong. Final group last week, he had like a triple bogey, I believe, like to start the back 9. That put him, nowhere near winning. But he's probably my favorite in the 7K, low 7s.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the 6Ks. I got the sheet up. What was his price?
7,300. I think he's a 5th, and then back in January, like a top 20 and a 2nd or something like that.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Let's see who else. Is there anybody else to you guys? I think I'm going to mix in this Matthew Laringus guy. He had a 6th place.
Guys. Yeah, I love it.
I don't know. He had a 6th place here last year at the Scottsdale Open. If you look into, he got through the pre-qualifier for the Waste Management Open in 2019. He had a 9th, a 2nd, a 6th on the Outlaw at the end of 2019, a 4th in a PGA qualifier. He's got a lot of top 20s, so at 7,200, I think I might mix him in a little bit in MME. He's not like a strong take by any means, but I'll probably have him a little bit. And then I like Andrew Funk. You have any Funk?
Yeah, he's been playing good for the price too.
Yep, I like Funk. Blake Cannon, one of my favorite plays as well. I like that he played here last year, played well. Ben Geyer was another guy on my radar. He's played professionally in Canada and Asia. A couple top 10s on the Golden State Tour. 6th place here last year. Who else? Ryan Williams made the cut here each of the last 3 years. He has gained the most strokes of anyone in this field at this event. Not on a per round basis, but the most strokes total. So he's interesting. Seems like a pretty safe option. Colton Lapa is apparently hitting his driver well, he says. And he's been interacting with all the DFS guys on Twitter. I kind of like that. Seems like he has a pretty good birdie or better rate. If we like the ball strikers that can't putt, those are the guys in my wheelhouse. So I'll have a little bit of him. And then I want to get your thoughts on one other guy. It just was interesting to me. Eddie Olson, he was like 10-1 last week, one of the most expensive guys. Just was terrible. Withdrew with the back injury. I think it was just pride hurting more than anything else. Any thoughts on that? Because I think his ownership is going to be 3 or 4%.
Yeah, I mean, because the 2 weeks before, he lost in the playoff to Czechia at that Parker Open. He should have won the event, too. I mean, Czechia, ran him down with, 6 under on the back 9. I mean, Olson has shown some upside. I mean, he has, in the fall of last year, if you go through, a 2nd, a 4th, 11th, 14th, another 7th, 3rd, 2nd, in the last handful of 2020 events. He mixed in some, 30s, late 50s, and a couple qualifiers. The big All-Pro Tour event, he was 58th in March. But, yeah, I mean, for an upside that we've seen, I just worry if that back is legit. I mean, that 9 over round is the worst round he's probably had. So that's my only concern. I don't know if there's any Twitter insight he might have or anything, but he's shown some definite upside. And he was like 9+K last week at least. It's a good point. Drew, you got it. Go, Drew.
No, I was just gonna say, who do you think has a bigger headache? Noto writing up his articles every week, or like the bookmakers doing odds on these guys down here that are 500 to 1?
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how they do it either.
Yeah, no headache for me. I love it. That's as much needed for me.
You got a story, Drew, about somebody down here that I like. Gregor Bain.
Yeah, I probably won't be playing them. Yeah, so it was pretty funny. I played in the North and South Am. It was at Pinehurst number 2 back in, I think, 2011. 2011 or 2010, I can't remember. So I was a junior or sophomore in college, and he had just graduated, and I got paired with him in the first round. So I was the 64th seed, and he was the number 1 seed.
Gregor Bain?
Yeah.
What year was this?
I think it was 2011 or 2010. So I got paired with him. He thought he was a shoe-in to win. I mean, for me, it was kind of like fun to play against a really good player, right? And he had hired the best caddy at Pinehurst. This guy who's probably 70 or 80 years old. He caddied in the U.S. Opens there. He had caddied for Payne Stewart in the U.S. Open practice round and stuff. There's a whole deal. And we get to 14, and I was dormy, so he was going to win if he had just tied the hole. And his caddy said something on the tee, was like, finish this sucker off. I want to have some lunch. And I was like, oh, shit. I can't have this. And it pissed me off, man. So I won 14, I won 15, I won 16. And I was 1 down on 17, and he stuck it to like a foot or two. And he beat me on 17. But I remember it was so funny because we were going back and forth. We were close the whole match, and he won 3 holes in a row. And finally the black guy was like, finish this sucker off. I want my lunch. And I was like, nah, dude, we're going to play. So that was pretty fun, though. Actually, for Pinehurst number 2 being a big golf course, that was probably one of the funner moments in tournament golf, especially for match play. You love match play too, Skylar. So to have that one-on-one with him. But yeah, he's a good player. I think the only thing I said to you was I just haven't been following him. He's on the older side, and I don't think he's made it to the PGA Tour or the Korn Ferry Tour besides a few starts. So he's not really on my radar. He was a really good player in college, but he just never really had it to make it. So he has an opportunity to go low for sure. So I'll let you speak to what you want to do with him.
Yeah, I just think he's interesting at 7K. He has 5 events in 2020, 4th, 19th, 4th, 13th, and 15th. That 13th was on the Golden State Tour. The other ones were just 1-round qualifier events. But for somebody who I think is average, if you do that strokes gained, field differential was over 4 strokes in those rounds. Pretty strong. He actually played in the U.S. Open, I think 3 or 4 years ago. He got through sectionals and made it to the U.S. Open. So I'll probably mix in some of him at 7K, and that's probably all my exposure in the 7s. There's a handful that I'll mix in as well in the high 6s, but anybody else? Oh, this was interesting today. Did either of you guys, and I'm going to give a shout out to Ryan at the Monday Qualifier, Monday Q Info. Did either of you guys watch the Twitch at all for the practice round?
I saw the screenshot of it and then watched the actual stream.
That counts.
It kind of does. But so they
I
put
saw
on
pieces.
Yeah, they're putting on top-notch quality for this week. The Twitch stream looks unbelievable. Video quality was strong. He's got people out there following the best rounds. And then our guys at the Outlaw Tour are going to continue doing their work. But this was interesting. So, the Paul brothers and Wu were playing the round. And then this Doug Quionis guy was playing with them. And I don't have any, much rounds on him at all, really, this year. And then I went and do some digging. He's probably the only person in the field that went and tried for European Tour Q School. You know that we love the European Tour here. And he got all the way to final stage and just missed out. And he has some strong finishes at this event as well. So I just thought it was interesting that it could just be a coincidence that they're friends, but I think he's an Arizona guy. And was showing him some of the ropes today at the course. So I might mix him a little bit just because of that Q School result. And he did really well in the Dakotas Tour in 2019. You can tell I have so much time on my hands.
Yeah, I like it. I saw his numbers on the Dakota store as well, so I like that. I'm not dipping too much into the 6K range. Some of these guys are going to shoot low rounds, but trying to pick the ones that are going to shoot those low rounds is probably a losing proposition. I think Neil Johnson's interesting at 6,800. We saw him shoot a really low round last week at the Legacy Classic. He's made 2 or 3 cuts here, and was actually playing pretty well here last year, and then got DQ'd. I'm not sure what happened. And then Ryan Dillon is pretty good here.
I'm waiting for him.
I don't know much about him, but he's been pretty good here. And I just want to talk about Daniel Mazziota, living in his van, grinding these mini tours. I love it, man.
That's crazy. So this was he might have been the only one or one of the few, but he won an event this year in Florida. I think he's based out of Florida, like his hometown.
Fort Myers. I played with him in high school, man. He's a cool dude. But he's living in his car.
So yeah, I mean I don't think any other guys it seemed that had many results in Florida, and he litters the mini tours around here. I think he's kind of interesting.
West Florida tour.
It's right in the backyard here. But no, I was going to bring up Ryan Dillon. I mean, he's got to be top 3 maybe in that total strokes gained here at the Scottsdale Open. Noto. I mean, he's
number 2.
Okay. Yeah, he has 3 top 20s in the last 3 years. He's like a 44-year-old guy that doesn't play any other events besides this one, but he used to be a mini tour legend, I guess, about 5-6 years ago in Arizona. So him, I have some interest in. I think it's Austin Fletcher at 6,700. He's just showed up in some of these one-day qualifiers too. 9 rounds since 2019, gaining over about 3.5 strokes on the field. So you don't really see that, in this kind of range. Besides Neil Johnson, Ryan Dillon, and Austin Fletcher. So those probably are my 3 favorite.
Hey, real quick side note, because you mentioned Mazziota, I just mentioned I played against him, and Rap said he wants another story. I don't have a story about Mazziota. He's actually a cool dude. But I do have a story. Derek will get a kick out of this. Me and Sky went to the LPGA event in Orlando, and I about got trucked over by Lexi Thompson. She is
so bad.
Dude, she stared me down, and I about just collapsed. Like,
what happened?
I blocked her from going in the the women's room.
Yeah, Drew didn't know which one was the bathroom. We were in the clubhouse before the event, and he just turns and she chests him right up. I died laughing.
Well, I remember what happened, dude, is her bag was sitting there, and I remember walking by, and I was like, oh, Lexi Thompson, that's cool. And I looked up, and she's staring at me, and I just froze. Like, don't hurt me. She's probably like 3 inches taller than me. She's got to be 6'1" or something, or 6 foot at least.
For sure.
I guess that wouldn't be 3 inches taller than me. I'm 6 foot with shoes, guys. No, but yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was our boy Tom Norwood taking us out. This is his hat, the Golf Guys tour that he plays on with a bunch of the NASCAR buddies.
Yeah,
so
was cool.
Yeah, so that was a fun event. But gosh, I mean, we're just throwing names at the wall if we keep looking at these 6Ks. Johnny Ruiz is somebody. If you follow George Gankis on Instagram, like Johnny Ruiz is all over it. He won an event, I think, early in 2020. Jennifer Kupcho's brother won an event recently, I believe in 2020 or late 2019 too. But, I mean, you're just talking about darts down here.
I would play that one girl that played out in this event, or these events during the summer, last summer. I forget what her name is at this point.
The Cactus Tour has been the other one that's been
but she played
in one of these, right? Yeah.
I forget who it was, but yeah, I mean.
Norquist, I think Anna Norquist maybe.
She was one, but there was another one, American girl. I forget now, but yeah, it's thin down here, and I gotta imagine most of these guys are going to be 1% owned, right around that ballpark, 1.5 probably under. So you're not really missing out on anybody down here that seems like they would be good chalk. It's just try to fit in, a sprinkle of some that you think have upside, and hopefully pair them with the right expensive guys. That's kind of my take on it. There's really not anything down here you're losing out on, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't think.
I struggle with this range on the PGA Tour when we do our shows with STL. So, I don't have anything else to say here. Although I'm hoping a fight breaks out between Brady Schnell and Kupcho and VJ. Yeah.
They need to pair those guys together next. Like, I would love that. VJ, I mean, go for it. Like,
VJ's a big dude too, dude. He's massive, and he's kicking the tires in Fiji or Hawaii or wherever he lives now.
As long as he doesn't accept money, EXCEPT.
But no, I mean that's
pretty much it. Any final
that's a wrap.
Yeah.
I mean, to think that we just went 50 minutes and just scratching the surface of what's to come on these guys. No, I appreciate you coming on tonight, Noto, and walking through. This has been, you tweeted a couple weeks ago that you don't even want Outlaw to end, and that's truthful. I wonder if there is going to be any contest. I think that's probably a stretch to think that they would continue doing them. Do you guys think there's any hope?
Maybe there'll be a sponsor and run on Monday through Wednesday and then do the PGA Tour Thursday through Sunday. That's what I'm hoping, but I doubt it.
This was the worst time for coronavirus to hit the PGA Tour. You missed the match play for Sky. You missed the Masters. U.S. Open qualifying's gone down the drain. Like, it's been awful.
We missed the Hideki Players Challenge.
Yeah,
it's insurance for that. I mean, you would think like you would have insurance that if you get through a tournament, like, pay me something.
I think they got paid like a 10% or something like that, the players. So,
yeah.
But it might have been across the board or something equal. I don't even remember. But that literally feels like years ago.
Yeah.
Feels like it didn't happen.
No, I mean, according to the database, it never did.
It never did. That's right. All right, we'll let Derek go. We're coming up on the hour. So, Derek, man, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we'll get back to our normal RG shows in the next month. I can't believe it's already May, actually.
Absolutely, guys.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you later, and good luck this week.